Hey everyone! The 2025 Free Comic Book Day issue of Power Rangers Prime/VR Troopers got me thinking back to the Free Comic Book Day issues we got in the past. First up is 2014's Mighty Morphin Power Rangers from Paper Cuts. Paper Cuts was the last company to have the Power Rangers license before Boom Studios. They did graphic novel style comics for Samurai and Megaforce and followed those up with two more Mighty Morphin graphic novels. Paper Cuts' Free Comic Book Day issue begins with a rundown of Mighty Morphin's story and character bios. The plot summary explains both Rita and Lord Zed. Alpha's name is spelled with a dash, Alpha-5. Kinda weird, but whatevs. Tommy's bio covers his story up to him becoming the White Ranger. Despite this, two of the three images are of him when he had his Green Ranger powers. The bios also include a list of weapons and Zords. For weapon, for Tommy, it just says Dragon Dagger with no Saba. For Zord, it does list both Dragon Zord and Tiger Zord. Each bio has a picture of the corresponding Zord to each Ranger, but for Tommy, there's just the Megazord. Trini's bio doesn't include her last name. Even Bulk and Skull have their full names included, so I don't know why Trini's was excluded. Zack's bio includes some odd info that sounds like it might have come from some really early conceptual stuff, like he likes to hang around the music class. Bulk and Skull have some funny info in their shared bio, not from the show, probably from wherever Zack's bio took info from. The plot of this comic is pretty weird, not necessarily because of its content, but because of its placement in time. It takes place somewhere in between events during the episode White Light Part 2. We start off with the Rangers awkwardly expositing what's just happened, so the readers have some context for where this is taking place. The Rangers are flying the Radbug out to a place to send Rita's dumpster back to space. Zack brought along a bag of stuff for some reason. A sharp turn causes some stuff to fall out. Kim looks at it confused. Are those toys? Zack explains that he got them for Angela. She's a fan of some old cartoon, The Walkie Talkies. I thought she liked Woody Woodpecker.
My favorite, Woody Woodpecker.
Here's one of the absolute weirdest and funniest mistakes in the comic. Trini refers to Bulk and Skull as Spike and Bulk. This happens more than once. All I can guess is that the writers and editors were only familiar with Samurai, so this mistake went over their heads. Up on the moon, Lord Zed watches the Rangers on a big screen. He doesn't use his red glowing visor like in the show. Babu is colored like his old figurine. His colors resemble that toy more than his show self. Lord Zed comes up with a plan. The text caption says he throws his staff to Earth, but the art depicts it just firing a beam to Earth. The beam hits the Radbug, turning it evil. It drives at the Rangers, hitting Trini in the leg. I think this may have been a reference to her leg injury she had while working on the show. To most readers, though, this was an uncomfortable reminder that Trini's actress Thuy Trang died in a car accident. Even Paper Cuts realized this, and in the digital re-release of this comic replaced Trini with Kimberly in the panel. The Rangers morph, and I remember back when this comic came out, this was what stuck out with most fans. Nearly every review I read or watched complained that the Rangers don't morph in the right order. Tommy also says White Tiger Tigerzord. The Rangers can't stop the Radbug, and Saba suggests Billy might know some weakness since it's his car. I like Saba being included. It makes the bio at the beginning even more confusing to have left him out. The Rangers flip the Radbug over, but Zed throws down a growth grenade, causing it to grow giant. The Rangers call the Zords, and a caption box describes them as symbolizing prehistoric beasts. Even lion and tiger? I think the writer may have been thinking of the Dinozords. Jason even says dinosaur power. Yeah, not Dinozord power, which wouldn't even have been right. It would have been Thunderzord, but no, he says dinosaur power. The Tiger Zord converts to warrior mode and gets inside the Radbug to try and slow it down, and this is a pretty funny panel. The others form the Thunder Megazord, and Kim's Firebird really stands out with its new bright pink color. The Radbug transforms into an upright monster, and one of Zack's walkie-talkie toys becomes a face. The Radbug looks kinda weird with two eyes. I think it should have had one eye that would fit the aesthetic so many other Season 2 monsters had. The Rangers managed to rip the Radbug's fuel line and turn it back to normal. Artwork from the beginning is recycled for a panel on the last page. Bulk and Skull are referred to as Spike and Bulk again. Zack's toys fall out of thin air. I honestly don't know what the art is trying to depict here. The implication is that the toys were stuck to the space dumpster, maybe? Anyway, Kim catches them and says she'll never doubt the value of collectibles again. I don't get it. So this was a cute, dumb little comic. It feels very much like something straight from the old Hamilton Marvel years. The art's pleasant enough, the character likenesses are all fairly accurate. There's a few odd choices, like coloring the Firebird bright pink, but I can understand why they thought that made sense. The humor is often forced and cringy, but that does fit this era of the show, so points for accuracy. The weirdest thing is the walkie-talkies toys. They're not a thing from the show or other comics. Despite this, they're pretty detailed. I wondered if they were an obscure reference to something, but I have no idea. I tried looking it up, and I can't find any kind of information about what these things are or what they could possibly be referencing. They come back at the end and seemingly teach Kim something? If you're a fan of the old Hamilton Marvel Power Rangers comics, I'd say give Paper Cuts a try. They're definitely not for everyone. They're juvenile, silly, awkward, quite a bit like Mighty Morphin Power Rangers itself. Maybe fans of MMPR would like it. It definitely stands out among other Power Rangers comics with how it tries to fit in with an existing episode. I think they picked a good episode for this. It's not my ideal, but White Light was a very available episode. It was released multiple times on VHS, it got reran on Fox Kids and Jetix, and it was the only Mighty Morphin episode Disney released on DVD. Even if a casual fan picked up this comic, they'd most likely be aware of the events going on. Moving forward, it's all Boom Studios. This wouldn't be so bad if so many of their Power Rangers entries weren't so similar. Next up, Shattered Grid. In Boom's canon, an evil interdimensional ranger Draken travels to different realities, defeating the rangers of each reality and stealing their powers. The Zordon of Boom's universe meets with three beings, the Emissaries, and asks them to speak with the Morphin Masters. The Emissaries think Zordon is only asking for help because his own team of rangers aren't up to the task. Zordon shows them a vision of his team on Earth. The Rangers are at the juice bar, and what proceeds is a Boom-style recreation of Day of the Dumpster. We see Tommy join the team and then die. At first I thought this was a pretty good way to introduce the Boom comics to new fans, but then this just comes out of nowhere. Zordon then shows the Emissaries the rise of Draken, who was once Tommy Oliver in another universe, but became completely corrupted by evil. Draken even kills Rita. The Emissaries deny Zordon and tell him that he wasted his chance to speak with them. Zordon departs, and the Emissaries discuss among themselves if they made the right choice or not. Draken, meanwhile, sits on a throne, surrounded by morphers, and we end on a glowing green lightning bolt to be continued. This was okay. I'm just not a fan of Boom's stuff. They're so overly focused on being gritty and grimdark, which can work, and I think this comic does a decent job walking that fine line. What turns me off is their insistence on using exclusively their own versions of these characters. Unlike Paper Cuts, which tried its hardest to emulate the show, Boom reboots everything. There's nothing wrong with a reboot, I just don't care for this one. The story is solid, the characters work, and it's interesting to see the origin of this very different interpretation of the cast. The Emissaries have an intriguing look. They exist as a red, blue, and yellow ranger in a state of flux between forms. All three appear physically male. The Emissaries are pretty unlikable, but even they work well enough. I do find it a bit clunky, though, that Zordon needs to go through a middleman to communicate with the Morphin Masters. The Emissaries kind of remind me of the Tribunal of Magic from Mystic Force. I feel like they worked better. One was negative, one was positive, and one was neutral. It made sense for there to be three. With the Emissaries, there could have been one. I don't know how it was settled on that there's only three. Shouldn't there be 6? That's the minimum of Rangers on a team, except Dino Thunder. Personally, I wouldn't think this would entice new or casual fans, but it did. Shattered Grid is one of the most popular events of not just the comics, but of the whole Power Rangers franchise. So, next up, The Road to Ranger Slayer. Welp, this was unpleasant. I get what they were going for, but this is pretty much the epitome of grimdark. In another dimension, Draken has successfully murdered multiple Rangers, and the few left lead a resistance against him. Kim goes alone to fight him, but gets brainwashed and turns on her team. She remains under his control for a while before it's implied she was rescued later. I didn't like this one. The art is fine, the characters are fine, I just don't understand why Mighty Morphin of all seasons is what someone wanted to turn on its head and turn into the history of Trunks. We get a nice conversation between Kim and Bulk. Bulk is definitely the standout here. He works really well in the role of a hero. I wonder if this was a response to how he was underutilized in Samurai. Overall, I just didn't care for the tone. A dark story can work, I just don't think Mighty Morphin needed one like this. It's jarring how Power Rangers the show always tries to sugarcoat things while the comics can't seem to resort to murder fast enough. I'm sure if someone liked Kim or Ranger Slayer in the main comics, they'd appreciate this backstory. I definitely don't think casual fans, kids, or people like me who just don't care for the tone of Boom's comics would like this. So next up is Ranger Academy. When it comes to Boom, it's either Grimdark or Cornball. Welcome to Cornball. Sage, an imaginative and curious young girl, lives on an isolated moon with her father. One fateful day, two people crash their spaceship on her moon. Sage rescues them, and they tell her about the Ranger Academy. She wants to go with them, but her father denies her. Later, the two people leave and find Sage stowed away. This definitely wasn't a bad comic, and I like that it's the beginning of a story instead of expanding on a previously existing one. There are some weak elements, though. The characters are all pretty flat, however, since this is a preview, they have the chance to grow. This was a comic with some potential. Unfortunately, that's about all it had. I find it unengaging, especially knowing how it turns out. The art is rough in spots, but it's probably the best Ranger Academy is going to look. It's unique in that it has zero connection to anything to do with Power Rangers. I thought maybe the titular Ranger Academy would be the SPD Academy, or maybe it would take influence from the DVD mission training. But it doesn't. These are all original characters in their own separate adventure. This is a hard comic to recommend to anyone. It's a bit wordy for young kids, far too basic for older kids, and not engaging enough for adults. I'd also avoid recommending it to kids simply because Ranger Academy as a whole isn't written well. Power Ranger fans probably wouldn't get much out of it, and casual fans are probably just going to be confused. I'm not sure what the intention was with Ranger Academy. Boom has access to all of Power Rangers and even associated shows like Masked Rider and VR Troopers, but instead of exploring any of those, they chose to go with something that's completely unknown. That's cool, unfortunately, for an original story, it's pretty unoriginal. Last up, Power Rangers Prime / VR Troopers. First up, Power Rangers Prime. A dog, Doobie, gets adopted by two guys. Doobie has mysterious powers. I don't know what they were thinking with this. Power Rangers Prime is a reboot of Boom's previous comic, which itself was a reboot that barely got beyond Mighty Morphin's Season 2 era. Prime started as a comic about Lauren, a character from Power Rangers Samurai, though preview pages looked no different from what came before. This Free Comic Book Day issue takes place during the events of the first couple of Prime comics, and apparently no time was wasted in turning Prime into a convoluted muddle. Doobie's adopted owners are Mark, some guy with purple things under his eyes, and some guy. We never get the other guy's name. They also have a little Tyrannosaurus Dinozord that looks like Agumon. No explanation. The two guys bring a woman home one night, and apparently that's supposed to be Lauren. I only know because I watched a review of the comic, and that person is familiar with Boom's design for her. The big problem with this comic is that there's no story. All this is just expansion of stuff from the previous comics. I assume these two guys had a dog just in the background, and someone decided to write out what the dog was doing. There's no cohesiveness to the narrative, it's quite literally just a bunch of stuff that happens. Nothing is explained, we just move from one thing to the next. For a promotional comic intended to inspire people to check out other comics, it was a strange choice to give zero context to a couple of completely original characters that relatively few outside the comic's existing readership would recognize. If someone is already deeply invested in Prime, maybe they'd get something out of this, otherwise I wouldn't recommend it. VR Troopers. The troopers catch a gang of thieves, and a mysterious woman contacts someone suspicious. This comic was bland, but an improvement over the Power Rangers Prime comic. At least this is cohesive. Actions lead into each other, consequences matter. It's all extremely basic, but not confusing. The troopers have no secret identities. There's no Professor Hart, just some hologram of a blue woman who reminds me of the "Where did you learn to fly" thing from Angry Video Game Nerd. The most baffling exclusion is Jeb. Since this was a tie-in with the Power Rangers Prime comic, a comic all about a dog, why wasn't the dog Jeb? The guy that isn't Mark may even be Ryan. He's a big, buff, blonde, white guy. I don't know, maybe it's him. It's hard to tell with the inconsistent art and lack of context. Unlike the Prime comic, I would recommend this. It's nothing amazing, it's not even really good, but it's solid. Maybe Boom's upcoming VR Troopers standalone comic will turn out good. I don't know how far it'll stray from the show yet. As of now, we know they have no secret identities, and there's possibly no Professor Hart. Maybe we could still see familiar faces at the Village Voice or Tao Dojo. Like Ranger Academy, it's mostly potential. I'm not sure if I would recommend this to VR Troopers fans, since these aren't the same characters and this isn't the same world. For kids, yeah, maybe, it's a decent introduction to the look of the Troopers at least. Casual fans would probably enjoy it, they may not care about the wider world and just want to pick up a throwaway superhero comic. So there's Power Rangers free comic book day issues. There's a bit more variety than I expected, though none of these are comics that really appeal to me, and I'd probably never have read any of these if they weren't tie-ins to my favorite show. I'm looking forward to the future. I'm curious to see what Boom does. Will they continue Prime? Will they have comics based on other Saban Fox Kids shows? Will there be another Ranger Academy-style standalone series? Maybe they'll try a completely different direction. So that's it for this one. Hope you enjoyed it. See ya.
See you in the comics.
Boy, I really hope somebody got fired for that blunder.